We are back with the DeWalt 7491. I picked this saw up used from a production cabinet shop here in town. And in the last video I talked about how the tabletop was not in great condition. I have since sanded it and applied some paste wax, so it's a lot smoother now. It's still not flat, so I still need to maybe sand it some more and flatten it a little better. But it's workable. Okay. The height adjustment was also having issues, and I was able to apply some dry lube, get that working. The bevel lock was really loose and just kind of flying all over. And once the bevel lock was unlocked, it wasn't really that easy to move the bevel setting. I was able to fix the bevel lock with basically just tightening this nut and locking it in, and then I was able to change the bevel adjustment basically just with some more dry lube, just spraying that into the pivot points. The fence, you see, still has this big gouge, presumably from the blade, and that is problematic because as you're running your workpiece through, you want to have pressure up against the fence. But then when you get to the gouge, you've got that being uneven, and that can cause some issues. I had an issue with a workpiece that didn't really make a fully straight cut because of the gouge. It can also cause issues with kickback and binding things up. You just don't want to have a gouge in your fence as you're moving that around. So I tried previously flipping it over, so then this smooth part up here would be where most all of my workpieces flow, but that caused issues because I got the push stick on the back side, and flipping it upside down made it so the push stick would catch on the table as you're moving it back and forth, because you can see this kind of sticks up over the top. So I flipped it back over, and the solution that I am going to employ now is using MDF as an auxiliary fence. So I have this MDF just lying around, and so I cut it to length. You can see it's just a primed MDF, right? And so now that fits right there. But you can see that this auxiliary fence is taller than the original fence. And that's not a bad thing, because it's nice to have more support for whatever piece you might be wanting to run along the table fence or the table saw. So what I had to do is drill some holes in there for my clamp, and then you can see I also chiseled out a little bit along the side so that my clamp can fit down in a little bit more, and that way it can get more clamping pressure onto the original fence. So I just picked up these Milescraft clamps, fence clamps, so they just fit in like that. All right. So you can see that they are now below that level rather than being stuck up above if I hadn't chiseled that out. So then, and you can see I'm applying a little bit of pressure down below, putting that on the same lower level as this lower fence, or this original fence. And the reason for that is that I want a little bit of clearance on the fence as I roll it back and forth, right? So I don't want it dragging. Now, my original fence actually does drag a little bit, because in my last video I told you that this rear rail, it has this black plastic on the bottom, but it's missing the black plastic on the top, and so it sits a little bit low in the back, and so it drags a little bit there right now. I've got the new rear rail on order, so a replacement, but that has not yet arrived, so hopefully it comes soon. But anyway, then I just clamp this guy down as best I can. There we go. So that's nice and solid, nice and smooth. and should make it a lot better for running my workpieces through without having any issues. Now, one thing that I did have to adjust after doing that is my measurement gauge here. Can't remember what this is called, but you know, it has the little line that tells me where I'm at on the tape. So I had to adjust that so that now it registers 0 when the auxiliary fence is at the blade instead of when the original fence is at the blade. And so then I can just use this marking to tell me how big the piece is set at. So anyway, that's really easy to adjust. Just unscrew these two right here, move it where it needs to be at, and then screw it back down. So not too terribly difficult. Anyway, that's probably it for now on the DeWalt 7491 Type 3, and we'll see you next time.